My talk is about DeepFAERS, artificial intelligence for pharmacovigilance, by diving deep into FAERS. So our previous speaker, Dr. Wang, has given an excellent introduction to FAERS data. So what do we do in this project is we try to develop an artificial intelligence technology for deep learning using FAERS data. So this is a joint work with the team from University of Arkansas Little Rock, including my student Xingqiao Wang, Recep, Erol, Bingyi, Zhong, and also Dr. Zhichao Liu and Dr. Weida Tong from FDA National Center for Toxicological Research. Okay, so first, why we do this? Because pharmacovigilance is very important for the patient. So this is a important mission of FDA. So based on the definition from WHO, pharmacovigilance is about the activities related to detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse effect or any other drug-related problems. Our focus is post-marketing drugs and bioproducts. So the goal is really, as I said, to dive deep into FAERS data using artificial intelligence. What we want to do is that in addition to model the safety signals, we want to also analyze the cause. So discover the cause and effect relationship. Because as McGill, the scientist said, quote, take away the cause and the effect ceases. So we want to tackle or understand the current opioid drug crisis by, analyze a large data set from FAERS, answer the question like, what is the cause of opioid drug death? If you use a Google search engine, do a search, what you found is, a lot of, web pages pointing to drug overdose. This is obvious, but the question is actually behind the overdose, what is the reason why people take overdose of opioid drugs? There may be, other factors, including indications, adverse events, age, sex, and so on and so forth. What are all these factors may be related to the root cause of overdose that is actually the reason, the cause for the opioid drug death. So the data set we use is from FAERS, that is the FDA Adverse Event Reporting System. Dr. Wang already mentioned in his talk, gave a brilliant introduction. So basically, FAERS database contains information on adverse event and medication error reports from physicians and patients. So the safety information in FAERS data, including patient information, primary drug use and secondary suspect drug use, and also adverse events. But what we want to do is we want to model the clinical outcomes, for example, death and hospitalization and so on and so forth. So we try to understand what is the reason, not just develop model to predict the clinical outcome for any usage of drug, but also we want to understand what is the reason that somebody may have a severe clinical outcome like a death. So the standard approach is Bayesian networks, which is a work contribution from Dr. Erol, who is actually recipient of ACM Turing Award, which is the highest award for the computer scientists, is comparable to Nobel Prize. So the idea of Bayesian network is a probabilistic graphic model random variables based on their statistical dependencies. So the graph showing here is an example. Let's say we have three random variables. One is a sprinkler, the other one is the rain, and the third one is grass. So each of these random variables may have a different state. So this graph showing the statistical dependency of these three random variables. For example, sprinkler, the status of sprinkler depends on the status of rain, and also the grass, the status of grass depends on the status of sprinkler and the rain. So based on these statistical dependencies, modeled in the graph, we can get a joint probability model for all the variables in the system. So there's a joint probability of grass, sprinkler, and rain can be factorized to the probability of rain, the conditional probability of sprinkler given rain, and the probability of grass given both the status of sprinkler and rain. So that is the result of this probabilistic model. And based on this probabilistic model and the joint probability factorization, we can use the so-called causal inference, based on the do calculus, which is again the contribution from Dr. Erol. And to answer the question like, what is the probability that it would rain given that we wet the grass? So this is the question related to the causal and effect relationship between the grass and also the rain. So what we do is that we will calculate the probability of rain given if we set the status of grass is wet. So this is called intervention. So we intervene the statistics modeled in a Bayesian network, and based on the so-called do calculus, which is a set of statistical algebra rule for the causal inference. So I will not dive into the detail, but the result is that is a marginal probability of rain. So which basically means if you change the status of grass, it will not have no impact to the status of rain. For that reason, actually, the status of grass is not a cause for the rain. So this is like all, but everybody knows in the statistics that correlation does not mean the causality. So that is a standard approach. All right. So, but a standard approach using Bayesian network has one major problem. The problem is actually how you get the graphic model. So using trivial approach, you have to basically discover from the data pairwise statistical dependencies. That is prohibitive. In real applications, most people just use assume the model, the graphic dependency model is given from domain expert. But this has a problem that the model from the domain may not be complete, may not be even 100% accurate. So that can cause accuracy issues. The other problem with the Bayesian network is that the model itself is considered to be a shallow, conventional, traditional machine learning model. So it's good for simple data set. But if you have a data set, such as a FAERS, it's a semi-structure. That means you have a natural language in terms of semantic meaning and syntax. Really, a shallow model will have issues to get into deep in terms of these complex semantic syntax relationships. for this reason, in recent years, deep learning using deep neural networks has been super rare because it has the ability to capture the deep relationships in the data set. So for this reason, basically, we develop a novel approach. We call it DeepFAERS, which is a novel deep learning methodology applied to causal inference. So this is novel because deep learning has been so successful, mostly actually for predictive models or predications, as well as learning tasks in machine learning. But to the best of our knowledge, there's no approach to address causal inference using deep learning approach. So for this reason, we combine deep learning with Bayesian network. So try to just take the most from both approaches. So more specifically, what we did is that we process FAERS data. So we get patient information and also the primary suspected drugs, adverse event, and also the outcomes, including death, hospitalization, and so on and so forth. Taking the data itself, essentially, as I said, is just like a natural language document, semi-structured. We will use a deep neural network language model, which the one we use is transformer-based language model, including, for example, BERT from Google and Albert also from Google. So the deep neural language model will help us extract right features from semi-structured data like a document, and then it based on the extracted feature, we have a Bayesian network. So the Bayesian network will help us to not only detect safety signals, predict the signals, but also help us do a causal inference and answer the question like, what is the reason for certain clinical, severe clinical outcome? So that is the approach we propose and how it works. We to prove the concept, we use opioid drug codeine. So what we did is we extract the data related to case report of codeine with clinical outcome, and then the result is that we have about 4,000 cases, and 1/3 of those cases involves outcome death, and the other 2/3 are alive. That means not involved death cases. So that is about the data. And what we did is that first we used the deep neural network model, and then the Bayesian network, we predict the clinical outcome. So the accuracy here shows is close to 90%. So we did also comparison with state-of-art machine learning approach, decision tree. So the result of decision tree in terms of accuracy is about 81 or 80%. So as you can see, deep learning model proposed by us achieve a significant advantage compared with a shallow standard machine learning approach. It's about 10% better in terms of accuracy. And also we did causal inferences using the so-called Zhong calculus. As you can see here, the conditional probability of the outcome is a death if we set the indication is suicide attempt jump from 36% or the probability point 36 jump from 0.36 to 0.64. So this is actually a very strong indication that the suicide attempt is actually one of the cause, at least one of the cause of the clinical outcome is of death. So we try to verify this discovery. And again, we use Google search. And if you search the Google using, for example, the question, is suicide really the cause of opioid death? This is what you get. You get the top result here. Number one here shows suicide deaths are major component of opioid drug. And there's a question mark. What kind of component? Is it a causal component or is just a correlations? And the second one sounds like a really indication of suicide might be the root cause. Okay, so that is what I will dive in that publication. So that publication is very recently is actually just matter of fact of 2 months ago. It's published in December 12, 2019. And the rest, as you can see, based on just the title, they are just correlations. It's not so much actually, not even correlations. It's actually just suicide is just one of the factors that reduce the life expectancy. So those results are really not so much related to this question. So we dive into, for example, just the first one. This is from National Institute of Mental Health, and so based on the information there, this information actually also quite new. It's actually from September. It's actually dated in September 19th, 2019. So what the message here is that, matter of fact, it is difficult. They found there's some correlations between suicide and opioid use disorder, but also the major message here is it is difficult to assess the intentions of individuals who has died of overdose, which means really, it's hard to figure out what is kind of a relationship. It's causality or it is just correlation. The second, article actually is published by Harvard and McLean Hospital. So they did a study, to analyze the cause of opioid drug use disorder. And what they did is that they have a survey to the patient before they take the treatment, and they ask the patient what is the, they have the questionnaires with the scores from 0 to 10. So 10 means the patient want to die, definitely want to die, and 0 means that the patient does not want to die at all. And what they found out that so around 60% of the patient, they already have a desire to die, and 40%, as a matter of fact, 36% among those patients, matter of fact, has a strong desire to die. And even like actually 20% patient reported they want to die definitely. They definitely want to die. So this discovery is actually very, very important for the reason that, as mentioned by Dr. Gold, who is the pioneer and who is actually a very renowned physician in the area of opioid drug use disorder. He is a professor of Washington University at St. Louis in the medical school. So what he said is that why this result from Harvard and McLean Hospital, why it is important is because if suicidal motivation is the major cause of opioid overdose, our approach to education, prevention, and treatment of opioid use disorder patients need to change, okay? And this has to be done quickly because it can save lives. So before the end, so this is what we learned. How the research, that is the most important, how our research will transform pharmacovigilance. For the reason, actually, our approach basically gave a new opportunity for the pharmacovigilance, not only understand and detect the safety signals, but also we can discover the cause. If we can, if we know what is the cause of severe, clinical outcome or, drug safety issues, we can tackle the problem to the roots. And the preliminary study shows actually using just one drug, one opioid drug from FAERS data, we can predict deaths with 88% of accuracy. And also we discover suicide attempt is the major cause, or you can say maybe root cause of a fatal outcome, as we verified using other people's study. And what we would like to do in the future is that, matter of fact, this approach is not just applied, can be applied to pharmacovigilance, but also can be applied to any area of the science. As long as we have the data that, including semi-structured data or structured data like a relational database. So this approach can be applied not only for the predictive purpose, as a predictive model, but also can be used as a causal inference model to discover the cause for the effect. And what we would like to do, specifically, actually, we just submit a broad agency announcement proposal to FDA. So we want to further develop approach to use multiple clinical and non-clinical data related to drug safety, including, for example, not only FAERS, but also electronic, patient record, and also rich scientific discovery documented in peer-reviewed publications, from National Library of Health, through PubMed database. So when we incorporate all these related clinical and non-clinical data, what we want to do is we want to develop a dashboard tool for FDA physicians and patients, for them to not only to, for example, as a physician or patient, you can they can use this dashboard tool, just give some information like what is their age, what their gender, what previous conditions they have, and so on and so forth. The kind of treatment they intended to use, and then the model will tell them will give them the probability of the potential clinical outcome or any other severe, adversary events. Not only that, but also this model can, for example, can tell them, well, if you take this medication, you may have a potential of death as a clinical outcome. So then the tool will also can show actually the physician or patient, in order to avoid this severe outcome, what they can do. For example, they may, maybe using the example of a suicide attempt. That means maybe you need to get, psychiatry, doctors involved in the treatment. First, try to, hopefully treat the suicide attempt first before you can take the medication using the opioid drug, or take it simultaneously. So this way really gave a better understanding for the drug safety issues. So this is what we want to do in the future. To finish, I want to use the code from Albert Einstein, which is very helpful for me to understand the reason why we try to discover the cause. So the code, scientific research can reduce superstition by encouraging people to think and view things in terms of cause and effect. With that, thank you. That's the end of my presentation.